So recently I read this manga called Goodbye Eerie, or Eri. I have a horrible accent, I'm American, don't get mad at me, but it's a Japanese manga, so my guess is the name is pronounced Eri. Either way, it's written by the same guy who did Chainsaw Man, and when I was told that, I was like, wait, but there's no violence and really any gore. But then I realized it's weird though, which is what this guy is the best at. Goodbye Eerie covers the story of a young man who's really into making movies, mostly what seems to be autobiographical movies. Okay, you'll understand why I'm shaky there with saying that when we start diving into the plot. But for the purpose of this description, we'll say he makes autobiographical movies about some pretty dark things that happen in his own life. The two movies that we see throughout the manga that he made, or maybe it's all one movie, you see, it's hard for me to even describe this manga because of things like this. So I'm gonna try and cover the main plot, and needless to say, it's gonna have quite a bit of spoilers. So if you'd like to read it before watching my video, I would suggest going to the link I provided below in the description and taking a gander. It'll only take you about 20-30 minutes tops to read through the whole thing. It's really freaking good, and I think it's worth a nod. Don't just watch my video or someone else's video describing it. Go ahead and read it, take it in for yourself, and be mindfucked the way I was. One thing you'll notice while reading through is that there's certain panels at the end of, scenes that don't seem to add up with the rest. Through searching on Reddit, I found that these panels actually tell a story of their own when you put them together. I took screenshots and I tried to put them together, and what I did figure out is that I think the beginning of the story is actually concealing from you the mom's abusive nature. And some of the panels that you see that are blurry, actually, if you put them together, they show what really happened. And I can tell because at the end, when it is revealed that she's abusive, I think they mirror each other. So trying to work out what is real and what isn't real in Goodbye Eerie is quite a feat, and I'm sure a lot of other YouTubers have tried. I didn't really watch any other videos on the subject before I made this video, and that wasn't like a choice. I just decided to make the video, and I didn't really do much research because there isn't really much to research when it comes to talking about how you feel about a piece of art. One thing I will say, since this channel focuses very much on mental health and me being schizoaffective, is that this is another piece of media that had me in my feelings because it very much represents, to me, I don't think this was intended, but to me, it looks like what it's like when you are in psychosis. And there's some very specific things that Yuta, the main character, says that remind me of myself when I'm in psychosis, because of the lack of caring about other people and also not understanding proper reactions to things, not having the proper emotions for things. The manga starts out on Yuta's 12th birthday, and his mom buys him a new cell phone with the request that he films her every waking moment until her death. She even brings up at the dinner table, while his cake still has the candles on it, I believe, she brings up, hey, I want you to film me because you know I'm dying. And Yuta says, I don't want to talk about this on my birthday, but she insists anyway. And this is a very strange moment because a lot of media will utilize the fact that it takes place in a fictional universe to normalize certain things. And this is the piece of fiction right now trying to normalize this behavior, as if asking your child, your 12-year-old child, just freshly turned 12-year-old child, to film you while you're dying, like your last weeks and months before your death, is very strange. But the manga tries to make it normal and just graze over that. I'd also like to point out that they're doing peace signs at this point in the manga, and later on that means something, and it's just oh my god, what is real, what isn't real, please. Yuta seems reluctant, but he does eventually comply with his mother's requests, and he begins to film her day-to-day life. You see a lot of very sad moments, like his dad trying to hold back tears, his mother smiling through the pain, and you just see a family in a lot of pain, knowing what's to come, but trying their hardest to keep it together. It was very sad and heartbreaking to read through, and this was just the first part of the manga. Keep in mind that it's one chapter and 8 parts, and this was just in part 1 that I was already a bit sad and moved. Basically, I knew this was going to get sadder and worse, but what I didn't know was how fucked up it was gonna have me feeling about what is real, what is really happening, what's going on, is this entire thing this kid's movie, why? There is something that his mom says where she says that she wants him to remember her as she was before she gets too sick, or remember her moving around or something on like a picture. And I thought it was really sweet and it brought tears to my eyes. But this will come back later, trust me, because this manga can't let you have anything. Believe me when I say you can't have shit in Goodbye Eerie. Hell, there's even a part where this kid films a couple of cats, and you think, oh, that's cute, he's filming cats. Trust me, this manga will stomp on that too later on. It just can't let you have anything positive. It has to make everything a mindfuck. It has to have you think about everything, and anything that isn't a mindfuck ends up being kind of negative, like the cat thing. We'll get there. There's a part where he films his parents while they're sleeping, and he says, I'm keeping watch in case she dies in her sleep. And like, I just got so sad. It reminded me of when my grandma was dying and knowing that I could wake up any morning and she would be gone. Eventually, his parents end up getting him a PC because his phone runs out of space. And over the course of the first part, you see how much filming he's doing. In fact, it is my opinion that every panel you see throughout this manga is being filmed. I mean, that's not an opinion, that's a fact. It is everything he's filmed, hence why it looks like this. However, it's debatable what is in the movie and what isn't. Now, I think that it's all in the movie, but that's the easiest and simplest, cleanest interpretation. There are so many other ways you could take this, but it does seem to be that the whole manga is the movie. When we finally get to the conclusion of part 1, Yuta's father pulls up to him and says, Yuta, we must go to the hospital, your mother is dying now. And then he explains that she wants her son to film her dying. Yuta is not okay with doing this, and he doesn't, and he runs from the hospital. And then the entire hospital explodes. And then it's revealed that we've been watching a movie, the movie that he made after his mom's death, and he called it Dead Explosion Mother. And he showed it at his middle school. And, well, most people's reactions are probably what you think they would be. There's a part where he's talking to one of the teachers, and he says, don't you feel bad how you've depicted your mother? Why did you do that? And he's like, you added that explosion in the end. Why did you? And Yuta, I swear to God, he goes, yeah, it was great, right? And he's like, no, it was disrespectful. Like, the guy, like, hits him, I think. And it's just kind of like, that's one of the things I was talking about when I said that, like, he reminds me of myself and sometimes not having the proper responses to the emotional content of what's happening. Part 2 of Goodbye Eerie is basically all the students and people telling him that his movie was disrespectful and that what he did was wrong, and eventually gets to the point where he wants to kill himself. And he films a suicide note in, I believe it's in his backyard or maybe the front porch of his house, or I believe it was at the hospital. You know, it doesn't matter. He films a suicide note basically saying, fuck all those kids who made fun of me. Dad, I want you to show this to them so they'll never forget me, which is an interesting point to make because that's what I believe his mom's point was about being filmed, never be forgotten. And then he goes off to the hospital to kill himself. And there he meets Eri, our titular character. Titular. Eri stops Yuta from killing himself, basically telling him that she loved his movie because it was different and interesting, and even though it wasn't that great of a movie, she thought it was different and it pushed limits, and that's what she liked about it. She drags him off to a warehouse where they proceed to sit down and watch movies for the next 9 to 10 hours, and she tells him that he needs to watch the great movies in order to make a good movie. And that's basically what this is about, her trying to get him to make another movie because she was very impressed with Dead Explosion Mother, which is okay. One of the things that Eri tells him she loved about his movie is that he filmed his mother so beautifully and made her look like really memorable. And she said, I want people to remember me that way. And that is foreshadowing for later, as you will come to find out. Over the course of the manga, the two decide to start scheming to come up with an idea for a new movie, but everything that Yuta presents Eri, she's pretty unimpressed with and thinks is boring or not unique enough or too much like something else, derivative, if you will. Eventually, he comes to Eri with the idea to basically film her. Now, it's a lot more convoluted than this, but he tells her that he has an idea for a story where she'll play the main character, and she's a vampire who is going to die soon because of an illness that she has. And she's about 1,000 years old, but she can't stop this illness. And so his job is to film her every waking moment and to finally film her dying moments so that he can get over the trauma caused to him by not filming his mother's dying moments. You know, I really didn't understand this part, but hey, everybody's different and the way they deal with things is different. So who am I to judge? Well, I am the most judgmental bitch on the internet, but that's a different story for a different day. After the two initially decide to start filming the movie, it is this part where the manga gets even more of a mindfuck. There are so many scenes and so many panels where I just can't tell what's real, what's happening within the manga, what's happening within the movie, and then by the time we get to the end of the manga, I'm like, okay, so it was all a movie? I don't know. I think my favorite parts of this manga are just when Eri and Yuta are sitting in the basement or broke down building or whatever. I think it's an abandoned building, and they're just watching movies together, being kids, laughing, joking, eating food, going to the convenience store before and getting snacks, and then sitting down for hours on end and just truly taking in a whole bunch of movies. I think that's really cool, and it shows this like really awesome friendship growing between them, but unfortunately the story doesn't really explore that too much, and it doesn't do that because that's not the type of story that's being told. And the type of media I like the most is when you only see a sliver of a universe, but you can feel how in-depth this universe and this world really is. Like Eri possibly being a vampire for reals, or Yuta's mom being like weird. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But there's a lot of stuff in this manga that I'm like, wow, this is a full universe. I'm only seeing a small part of it. Eventually we get to the point in the manga where we find out that Eri actually is sick. She actually is dying, and she does explain this to Yuta, and there's even a really uncomfortable, sad part in the manga where they both talk about how she wished she could have saw the movie, when it was finished, and he tells her, oh, you can watch it when it's being edited, but, she wanted to see the finished product, but she's gonna die, so she doesn't get to see it. That makes both people very sad, and they share this like uncomfortable, awkward, sad silence, and they're just like, yeah, it's just sad. Also, you find out that they weren't really together as boyfriend and girlfriend, but they did film some kissing scenes, and they do act as boyfriend and girlfriend in the film. After Eri is sick and goes to the hospital, Yuta decides he's going to film her every waking moment from there on out, and this becomes what he makes into a film that is now being shown at his junior high / middle school, I'm not sure. And it's interesting because, again, that came out of nowhere. Her dying moment. You don't really know it's her dying moment, but she does say, I want to make a movie that'll make them cry their eyes out or something like that, or bawl their eyes out. And then, again, it pans out and boom, we are now at the junior high, and your bunch of kids are sitting there crying, and that you've been watching the movie. For how long? I don't know. I have no idea how long it's been a movie. The manga didn't bother to fucking tell me when that happened, but okay, here we are. Again, not sure when the movie started or when the story's actually begun. It's fine, I guess. That's fine. So that was my boyfriend that just called, and he just informed me that I'm probably pronouncing this girl's name wrong. He says, I have a feeling it's Eri, and I'm like, it probably is, but, I've been saying Eri for the last, I don't know how many minutes, but you know what? I'm gonna change, and I'm gonna say Eri. I'm actually gonna go between Eri and Eri. That way, if it doesn't matter, I'm right at least half the fucking time, right? As I said, a lot of the kids after the showing of the movie, which is called Goodbye Eri, there's kids crying, and one girl comes up to Yuta and asks, I didn't know you and Eri were dating, and he's like, we're not. She goes, I thought Eri wore glasses, and he goes, yeah, she does, and she has a retainer, but she asked me not to film her wearing glasses or the retainer. And she's like, oh, and then she goes, you made her seem really nice and kind, but that's not really how she was. She was kind of a judgmental bitch. And Yuta goes, yeah, I know. I just filmed her the best way I could, something along those lines. After Eri's death is kind of confirmed, we get more information about the true relationship that Yuta had with his mother. And it's pretty heartbreaking because it turns out she's just an abusive bitch. She was a Broadway star or a TV show star or something, and she wanted to do this whole documentary after she recovered, but she ended up dying anyway. And she basically abused the living fuck out of him the entire time they were filming. And for instance, remember when I told you that in the beginning it's kind of odd to ask your 12-year-old son to film your dying moments and also film your last weeks or months? Well, yeah, it's odd. It is odd. It's weird, and it's awful, and it's mean, and it's abusive. But the manga hides that from us through Yuta's film, in which he filmed her at her most beautiful, kindest moments and cut out all the evil shit. And that's what he did with Eri. And interestingly enough, that has a very interesting twist. Let's just put it that way. And I'm almost there. But you find out that, when he filmed that cat, she was like, why are you filming that cat? You're supposed to be filming me, you stupid idiot. Bitch, what the fuck? Yuta's dad knew this was going on, and he actually apologizes to Yuta at this part about ignoring how his mother treated him. And he shows him the video of what actually happened because Yuta's father ended up recording her dying. And this is fucked up, but you hear her say in the video, that boy was useless till the end. She hated her son. She used him to film her dying moments to make her look good posthumously. posthumously, I can't say that word. I have a slight lisp, okay? Look, she wanted to look like a better person after she was dead. She knew she was a bitch, and she forced the son that she abused to film her in the best way possible and basically manipulate him, maybe. I don't know. The point is that she tried to make herself look good. And I think her son knew that, so he cut out all the bad, abusive things that she said and did and just made her look beautiful and like a kind woman, the way that someone would want their mother to be and would want people to remember her. Now, personally, I think it is a choice. And by a choice, I mean wrong. I think it is wrong to show your child video of his mother saying that he's useless. Even in her death, she couldn't be kind to her son. Now, one thing I will say that's a note here is that I believe his father asked, "Why are you recording?" And there are a few times throughout this manga, if I'm remembering correctly, and I've read it quite a few times, but it's a lot to take in, even as short as it is, so maybe I'm remembering wrong. But I do remember parts where I think his dad and other people asked, "Why are you filming right now?" And I get the feeling that those parts represent real things, real emotions, real situations, the things that people didn't know they were being recorded. Those are conversations about real things that really happened in this universe, right? But everything else is up for interpretation. We have no idea. I don't. Maybe someone smarter than me does. I certainly don't. And finally, we get to the conclusion. Having filmed a death, the thing he couldn't do for his mother, the protagonist regains the will to live and the confidence to make movies. The end. That was my first character in the movie. In the real world, it didn't work out so smoothly for me. After the school festival, I started holding up in my room instead of going to school. I'd spend all day at my computer, recutting Aries' movie. Are you starting to understand why you have no idea what the fuck is going on in this manga from moment to moment, panel to panel? Bro, my neighbors are so fucking loud. I don't understand. Even after Yuta gets married and has a child, he is still obsessively cutting and recutting Goodbye Eri. And then the unthinkable happens. That day, my wife, daughter, and father, and myself were all in the car. I was driving. In an instant, everything went dark, like turning a TV off. The next thing I saw was the ceiling of a hospital room. It was explained to me that there had been an accident in front of us, and our vehicle had been caught in it. And I was the only member of my family who survived. Yuta had managed to outlive his mother, his best friend, and now his wife, his daughter, and his father. He had regained the will to live, and then watched his family, everything he loved, the people, the very people who helped him regain that will, all die. After this horrible tragedy, Yuta decides to take his own life, so he heads down to the one place he says holds memories for him. Yuta returns to the abandoned building that him and Eri used to watch movies in. Again, the last place where he has good memories. And with his rope in hand, he intends to do the unthinkable. And then he hears a line from his own movie. "The world is filled with death. Memento mori. Yuta signing off." It is interesting to note that this is what he said when he originally filmed himself about to commit suicide. You'll also note that all of these panels are filmed, again, like this, as if being filmed through a phone. He turns to see none other than Eri sitting on the couch watching that very movie. And if you thought this manga was a mindfuck, well, here's the best part. Eri explains that she is a vampire and that she did die, but only up here. You see, the human mind is like a hard drive and can only hold about 200 years worth of memories. So every 200 years, Eri dies and then wakes up with a completely fresh memory 3 days later. And that is what happened all those years ago. She died and then rewoke, and instead of not really knowing what to do, she received a letter from the previous Eri and that movie. And this is what I meant earlier when I said filming her in the most beautiful, best way actually makes sense, because now when she watches this movie, it is teaching her who to be, who she used to be, and all you see are the best, kindest parts, making her that person. And I found that incredibly beautiful. Like I was like, wow, that is fucking amazing. And also it was a mindfuck with this whole idea that the human mind can only hold 200 memories, or 200 years of memories. It just, wow. Like, and I was like, I'm ready for a sequel to this. I want to know all that, how that works, like the vampire world and everything like that. I would like to know how that works. And Eri tells him that watching this movie is a beautiful concept for her, because no matter how many times she forgets him, she can watch this movie again and again, and she'll remember him. And I'll never forget you, she says. Isn't it beautiful? And it is. I truly love this concept. Yuta agrees, and then Eri tells him, hey, I don't like it when people talk during movies, so either sit down or leave. And Yuta, surprisingly, decides to leave. Before he does, Eri mentions something about how she liked his movie, but it was too cheesy because the love interest died, and something about it needing a pinch of fantasy, which is something that his father had said about him earlier. He had told him that, Yuta liked to add a pinch of fantasy to everything, and that's what Dead Explosion Mother was. And then Yuta leaves, and as he's walking out, he seems to be relieved, and you think he's probably not going to kill himself, and then the fucking building blows up. And you are again back in square fucking one. No, not even square one. Square fucking zero. It's like, what the fuck? What just happened? How much of this movie is real? Did he ever get married? Did he go to college? Is he still a fucking kid? Did his mom even die? Did she even exist? What the fuck is this shit that I just read? And that is why Goodbye Eri is one of the greatest mangas ever fucking written. Because one thing I noticed after reading this manga is that it seems to intentionally or unintentionally make commentary on how people represent only the best of themselves on the internet, namely social media. Places like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they all exist so that people can post the pictures of themselves that they deem the best. They can post the stories about themselves that they deem most positive. They can say and do whatever they want, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality, or it only reflects a small sliver of reality. There is also an interesting question to be asked here. Is it okay to remember only the good parts of somebody? Is it okay to only remember the bad parts? I myself have lost a lot of friends and family over the years. I am 38, but I've definitely lost more people than somebody my age should. I've been to way too many funerals, and at this point I pretty much refuse to go to any more. And one thing I will tell you is that I have memories, good and bad, of all these people. There is one parental figure I had in my life who was quite mean and basically abusive to me, and I remember her barely positively at times and fairly negatively at others. And I think there is something important about remembering people for who they are, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrific. All those things matter. Cutting out certain parts of their life so that only people can see the good parts, or that you only remember those times, I don't know. It seems like you're erasing part of their identity when you do that. Don't people want to be remembered for the truth, for who they really are? Do people only want to be remembered for being good or kind or caring, not being anything like themselves? I don't know. But I'll be honest with you. I want people to remember me for everything. The good, the bad, the horrific, the lovely, the beautiful, the ugly, all of it. I wouldn't feel like they're remembering the real me if they watched a movie that only made me seem kind. Kind of like these YouTube videos. If somebody just went through my YouTube channel to figure things out about myself and never talked to me, or just looked at my social media accounts, they would get a weird idea of who I am. They would think I'm a lot kinder than I truly am. Because really, I'm kind of a bitch, and I say it all the time, and it's funny because my Discord community doesn't seem to see it, but it's like, it's there. I am a judgmental bitch, just like Eri. But just like Goodbye Eri, I just show you guys the best parts. This manga really had me in my feelings about this kind of stuff, you understand? It really got me thinking about what it means to show yourself, and what it means to be yourself, and how people are going to remember me after I die. And if I want people to remember me for being the best person I am, then I need to be the best all the time, right?